Hi guys, I hope you're all doing great. Today I'm gonna test several different diffusers that I own and compare the end results after in Lightroom. I'll be taking test shots of two different subjects for easy comparison. The first without attaching any kind of diffuser, just using the speedlight on its own. Then I'll be taking the subsequent shots with each diffuser. The first one is gonna be a very basic bounce diffuser that comes with most speedlights. The second one will be the LiQWYD Easy Bounce CAD. Then this third one is gonna be the Gary Fong Lightsphere with the collapsible light dome, which you can attach just like that. These two are mainly used for portrait photography, but we're gonna give it a go in macro and see how they perform. The very last one is a reflector and diffuser kit from Crafty Bells. It comes with two different types of diffusion layers. One is semi-transparent or translucent, and the other one is made out of foamy, really soft material, and also comes with this reflector pad, which you attach to the top of the speedlight. I will leave a link in the description below to every single product. Also, just as a disclaimer, I'm not associated in any way with any of these companies, so this is going to be an honest review, and I'll try to be as objective and as unbiased as I possibly can. The subject is going to be two different dandelions. One has a yellow flower or yellow blossom, and the other one has already seed pods on it. Without further ado, let's get those shots and we jump into Lightroom and look at the end results. For this test, I'll be using the Canon 80D with the 100mm macro lens from Canon with image stabilization. The 600DX RT2 is going to be our flash, and I'll be using through the lens metering, and I'll be shooting everything at the base ISO of 100. The aperture is going to be f14, the shutter speed at 1/80th of a second, and I'm not using any flash exposure compensation, just leaving it at the default setting. Also, the magnification ratio is going to be at its maximum on this lens, which is 1:1.
I'm going to try and focus on top of the seed pods.
Focus is spot on. I've got the basic bounce diffuser on there, and I'll be taking the exact same shot.
If the wind stops blowing this little subject of ours.
All right, we've got this one out of the way, and the next one is going to be the LiQWYD Easy Bounce CAD. They look quite similar, these last two ones. I've got the Gary Fong Lightsphere on there, and see how this one performs. And this is the Reflector diffuser kit. This is what I normally use for my macro photography adventures. As you can see, there is the first diffusion panel right there, and in the middle another one, and this is the reflector pad, which is attached to the top of the flash. I also changed the angle of the head of the speedlight because the light needs to bounce off the reflector through this first layer of diffusion onto the second one, so this should result in a very even, very soft diffused light. All right, we're gonna do the exact same thing with our second subject, which is gonna be the yellow dandelion, as I said before. I'm gonna try and focus right in the middle of this beautiful little flower. I found a live subject, and I'm gonna try to take the exact same series with that one. Wish me luck. Hopefully it's not gonna move. I think it is a tiny parasitoid wasp of some sort, and it's resting on one of these leaves behind me on the Feijoa tree.
Oh, the wind is pretty crazy.
I'm gonna check on this bounce diffuser now.
Still there.
Oh no, don't tell me that it just flew away. I can't believe this. That's our luck.
Damn it.
Getting a little bit too cold out here, so I had to put my beanie on. I'm gonna be staying out here for a while, hoping that the subject will return to the Feijoa. If not, then I'm gonna try and find something else. This subject was really good because its exoskeleton was highly reflective, so the level of diffusion really made a difference. I'm really bummed that I couldn't show you guys how much better the very last image would have looked with my usual reflector diffuser kit.
2 hours later.
I found another subject, which is a small fly. It's just resting on one of these leaves. I'm gonna take a shot right now. All right, we've got all our shots. Let's jump into Lightroom and see the end results. Here we are in Lightroom, and these are the processed JPEGs, but all I have done to the raw files is I adjusted the exposure, so the exposures are relatively close to each other, and also changed the white balance because I forgot to set it to custom white balance. Everything was on auto white balance. This first image was taken without any diffusion, and you can see that some parts are almost blown out. If I check whether any parts are blown out, it doesn't show up, only a very few here and there. With the second one, there are actually more parts that are blown out. This one was with the Bounce diffuser. Overall it looks slightly better. The third one was with the LiQWYD. Let's have a look at those highlights again. And this one works much better. None of the highlights are blown out. The lighting is a little bit more even. And then with the Gary Fong one, the exact same. No highlights are blown out. The lighting is really nice and diffused. And then the very last image was taken with my Reflector diffuser kit, which I normally use for my macro, as I mentioned before. Let's have a look at those highlights again. And as you can see, none of the highlights are blown out. The lighting is the most optimal here. The gradient is beautiful. The transition between the highlights and the shadows is very gradual. Alright, let's jump to the second series. This one was taken without any diffusion, and you can already spot just one little segment of this petal that looks blown out. Let me just check. It's not blown out, but it looks a bit distracting. And also the highlights on the right side are a little bit more pronounced than, for example, with the Bounce diffuser. This is the basic diffusion accessory that I used. Here you can see that these highlights are a little bit better, look a little bit better than, for example, this one. And then let's jump to the LiQWYD. The LiQWYD is actually quite similar to the one with the Bounce diffuser. Maybe some of the highlights look slightly better. And then what about the Gary Fong one? Again, the Gary Fong one looks relatively similar to the one taken with the LiQWYD. I'd say they are on par with each other. And then this one was taken with my Diffuser Reflector kit. I think this one again proves that having multiple layers of diffusion plus the reflective material helps to even out the light across the entire scene. And again, the gradient is really beautiful and gradual. Let's jump to the next series of the wasp, this ichneumon wasp, parasitoid wasp. You can already spot these really ugly specular highlights. In this first image, this is what you get if you are not using any kind of diffusion. And then this one was taken with the basic Bounce diffuser. The highlights are not as disgusting, I'd say, but still quite pronounced, and they don't look nice at all. And then with the LiQWYD, again, very similar. The highlights are even larger in this instance, which is surprising to me. And then the Gary Fong one, that looks a little bit better. Again, there might be slight differences in the exposure because the flash output fluctuates slightly, so that can result in a different amount of highlights. Unfortunately, with this species, I couldn't use the Reflector kit, which I was really annoyed about, but at least we found this last subject of ours, a little fly species. So let's have a look at those images now. So this first image was taken without any diffusion. Again, if I zoom in, you can see that there are plenty of highlights, well-defined highlights across the wing and the thorax as well, and even on the legs. The Bounce diffuser improved the image overall a little bit better, even though the focus was slightly off here. I focused a little bit to the front. Let's go to the LiQWYD one. This one looks significantly better, I'd say. Much better across these highlights on top of this specimen, but the legs are still showing those annoying highlights. And here's the one that I took with the Gary Fong Lightsphere. I'd say it's very similar to the one with the LiQWYD. I'd actually prefer the LiQWYD in this instance. It just looks more appealing to me. And the very last image was taken with my diffuser kit, and this is, I think, in terms of lighting, the best. Again, beautiful even lighting across the specimen, and those highlights, especially on the legs that were so unappealing in the other images, look so much better, significantly better in this frame. I should wrap this up for today. I hope you find this comparison useful. If you're new to macro photography, I highly recommend you invest into a diffuser kit, a diffusion system. The results will speak for themselves. It's definitely going to yield much better results than, for example, just using the speedlite on its own. Thank you so much for watching. If you're new here, please consider subscribing, and see you guys very soon in the next one.